Recommendations for Public Safety. Thank you for coming at this early hour. As you know, we are trying to keep on schedule with all things for the midterm budget right now. We'll obviously be continuing our conversations offline as well as for the larger budget. Because we have a lot of folks to talk today and we have a larger than normal mid-year budget, I'm going to ask everyone to come in and be concise. Brief is good, but we also are anxious to hear the changes you have. If they are just the normal $5,000 pay increases, which I think we're all very excited about, you can say that just briefly. You don't have to go through each individual section that has the same. We're going to go down the list unless anyone, if you have an immediate need that you have to get off to something else, please come up and see us. But if not, we're just going to go in order of the budget today. Sound good? All right. I didn't ask him in advance, but Senator Robertson, would you mind opening us in a word of prayer?
I do not. If everyone would bow your heads with me, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you once again, Lord God, for the wake-up we had this morning. We thank you for the joy, the fresh air, and the beauty that you provide for us each and every day. Lord God, remind us, every man and woman, that our role here is to protect our fellow man from harm and injustice. God, as we make these decisions today, Lord, please grant us the compassion and grace needed each and every day to get through this world. We ask these things in the precious name of your Son, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Senator. Okay, we're going to begin with Department of Community Supervision. If you want to come up to the podium. And although we know a lot of you all want you to introduce yourselves so everyone can be familiar, and if anybody, are we online? And anybody online?
Yes, sir, and thank you. I want to say happy Valentine's Day to everybody. I am Scott Maurer, Assistant Commissioner for Department of Community Supervision, and I also have with me today Olivia Duke, who is our Chief Financial Officer. And so I will be very brief. I will try to set the precedence for the rest of these fine folks. We really only have 2 items to share with you this morning, and then I'm certainly here to answer any questions if I need to. We always appreciate the opportunity to discuss the great work that our staff and officers across the state are doing on a daily basis, and I certainly want to take the opportunity to recognize their work. We have 2 items again. It's in section 18 at the top of page 1, and it's going to be lines 101.1 or 100.1, 101.1, 102.1, and 103.1. Of course, as referenced earlier, sir, the $10,805 one-time funds for pay increases for employees. We, along with everybody else, are having a hard time hiring as well as keeping people right now, so certainly very much appreciated. And then line 101.2 is a one-time purchase of 65 vehicles for replacement vehicles for our agency fleet. As Commissioner Neal spoke during appropriations, those vehicles are essentially our officer's office. And so the average mileage on those vehicles for replacement is about 130,000 miles and about 9 years old. So that's a one-time $2.2 million for replacement of 65 vehicles. Other than that, that is all we have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I appreciate it. A question for you on the replacement of vehicles. I think we all agree that a lot of our vehicles are older and need to be replaced. I have 2 questions. Number one, typically we bond those vehicles out, although we've gone back and forth over the years, knowing that sometimes if those vehicles aren't ready to be purchased, that's a challenge. But the second part is, with the supply chain challenges we're having, are there vehicles available to purchase?
So that is a very good question, and Ms. Duke and I actually had this conversation last week about the challenge of being able to get those orders in. And a lot of the places, so I don't know if you have anything to share with that. A lot of the contracts that we have with the vehicles we've purchased in the past, we are trying to negotiate an agreement with them to hold the vehicles until the budget passes, and but we haven't necessarily heard back from that on that agreement. But I think it is going to be a challenge to be able to purchase those vehicles.
Well, let's make that a follow-up item for us to talk about, because if it becomes easier for us to look at bonding these out just to give us flexibility of time, and we know we need to replace the vehicles, but let's make sure we're doing it in a measured way.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Great. Any questions for Department of Community Supervision? Question from Senator Robertson.
Thank you for showing up today. I really appreciate it. What's the average retention rate or turnover rate for the agency right now?
So right now, it's traditionally, since DCS's inception, it's always been around 12%, and we're projecting it this year to be close to 17%. So we've had a significant increase in turnover in the past in this past fiscal year.
Okay, and to Senator Albert's point, Chairman Albert's point on the vehicles, looking at the vehicles to be purchased, Ford F-150s, are we talking about pickup trucks?
Yes, sir.
Can you explain to me the necessity of a pickup truck for community supervision?
Yes.
And I understand the Ford Explorer because it is the officer's vehicle, but the pickup truck, I'm a little...
So the trucks we have, over the course of the inception of DCS, every time we go out in the field around the state, one of the biggest complaints we have from our officers is they're going to some very remote places in South Georgia and up in the mountains and driving down dirt roads and in long driveways. And so one of the biggest complaints that we've had is with the vehicles and the low clearance rate and getting stuck. And so we have started to replace a lot of our Explorers as well as the Impalas that we had with trucks.
But these are in targeted areas, right?
Yes, in the southern part of the state and the northern part of the state, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to continue with, we have a question, Senator Harper? Okay, all right. There's been discussion. We're going to bring up the Commission on Family Violence.
Okay.
And everybody try and behave yourself because Chairman Tillery, our Chairman of Appropriations, here in the back of the room, so he'll be taking notes on your good work.
Good morning. I am Jamila Farrell. I'm the Family Violence Intervention Program Supervisor at the Georgia Commission on Family Violence. And I appreciate the opportunity to discuss the great work of the Commission and the opportunity to review the item that has been recommended in the amended FY 2022 budget. I won't go into too much information about the Commission. You all have a presentation that gives you an overview of what we do, but we only have one item to review with you this morning, which can be found in Section 18 at the bottom of page 4 in the Senate track sheet, and that's line 104.1, and that's the increase for funds for a $5,000 pay increase for full-time benefit eligible state employees with the Commission. So that's the only item we have.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, any questions of the committee members? Fairly consistent. We appreciate that. Look forward to following up. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next, Department of Corrections. Come on up, Commissioner. Largest part of our budget here.
Good morning, everybody. And go Rams, and Matthew Stafford finally got him one, so good game last night. Again, good morning. Pleasure being here to talk to y'all this morning. I'm going to go over 4 different categories. One, the statewide changes, vehicles, infrastructure, and facility transformation.
The Commissioner, just introduce yourself for those who might be watching on video.
I apologize. Timothy Ward, I'm the Commissioner, and also I have Alan Watson, my Chief of Staff, here with me also.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to start on page, I apologize. Start on statewide recommendations. That's going to be 106.1 through 113.1. That's the $5,000 pay increase to address recruitment and retention, and that's a $40,162,541 there. Okay. Next will be on the vehicle recommendation. That's tracking number 112.2. $4.1 million for the replacement of 107 GDC vehicles past their useful life. And tracking number 112.3, $5 million to purchase a combination of transport buses and vehicles for regional transport hubs to assist the sheriffs with the intake of offenders around the state. And the total vehicle recommendation is $9,192,800. Next is the infrastructure recommendations. That's tracking number 112.4, $23.8 million to upgrade the radio system statewide. That upgrade radios that are at the end of their useful life for all facilities, officers, and vehicles, for everybody. Tracking number 112.5, $5.5 million for wireless upgrades statewide. Will allow for an increase from 20 megs to 100 megs statewide, increasing the ability to roll out technology to enhance safety, security, while supporting retention of officers. And the total infrastructure recommendation is $29,389,297. And next will be the facility transformation recommendation. The governor understands the challenges of our aging infrastructure and has heard our concerns. In coordination with the Georgia Building Authority and State Properties Commission, funding has been allocated to purchase an additional facility and begin construction of a new facility. The construction of this new facility will focus on increasing officer efficiency, updating technology, and creating a safer environment for both staff and offenders while promoting staff retention. Total facility transformation recommendation on page 30 of your document tracking number is tracking number 235.1 is $432,500,000. And again, that's in the GBA budget. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my brief presentation of those 4 items I had. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let me first thank you for your leadership in pushing for the new facility. I know we've been talking about that for many years now, and it's an important step forward for your department. 2 quick questions. In looking at the pay raises, which I think we all agree will hopefully continue to help out with the turnover rate, what about for the private prisons? Where is there parity for those folks who offer similar services to the state?
I think that $3.6 million that's in that line item item is that FY23 budget is $45,000 for those officers to get that parity.
Okay. I understand in the last year's budget it was there, but I don't believe it flew through to everybody on the other end of that. So I'd like to have a follow-up offline conversation with you and some of your folks to make sure that there's parity there for everyone who's helping us.
Gotcha.
Great.
Okay.
And then the other question, similar to the first one, do you think that we're going to be able to get the vehicles that we ordered?
Yes and no, right, Alan? We're working hard on it, and we've done an awesome job of making sure we're recycling those vehicles, and but we're hopeful we can get those vehicles.
Yeah. Again, we know they need to be replaced. That's not the question. The question is will they be available in the time they're looking to buy them versus bonding them?
What we're doing, we're looking at some other options that are on statewide contract, not similar to the other vehicles. So we're hopeful we can get those.
Okay. Other questions for our friends in corrections? We've got one from Senator Robertson.
Yeah. Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
You mentioned something about the transportation of regional inmates. Are we closer to a kumbaya moment with the sheriff's departments as far as whose responsibility it might fall to moving state inmates out of county jails into our prison system?
I think we came to a amicable resolution by creating statewide hubs. So they can be regionalized, so that they can bring those to those regional hubs and drop them off, and we'll transport them on to Jackson. So we're going to do 4 regional hubs, 4 big regional hubs, and then also the mini hubs that we already have established. So I think by talking to, I think from hearing from Terry Norris, I think that's going to be an amicable solution to resolve that issue.
Well, I appreciate Department of Corrections coming to the table with those many different personalities and being able to find a resolution to what was a legitimate problem.
Yes.
Not only within those 2, with the Sheriff's Office and Department of Corrections, but throughout the state. And I appreciate you.
Got it.
Other questions from the committee members? Senator Harper?
Commissioner, with the $5,000 pay raise, what will this bring your starting salary?
For a medium security facility, be $36,044, and at close to be $39,144.
You said, so post was the 39?
Yes.
Okay.
Close to be $39,144, and at medium security facility, be $36,044.
Okay.
And Senator, we've done some analysis for states around us that we'll be sharing with the committee members as well.
Thank you. That's what I need.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We'll let you go.
All right, thanks.
Okay, next up, the GBI.
A lot of people.
That is. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is John Melvin. I'm the Assistant Director of the Georgia Bureau of Investigations. Along with me is Connie Buck. She's a Chief Financial Officer and the brains of the operation. On our amended 22 budget on line item 204.2, we are asking to reduce funds to reflect delays in the start dates that we had for certain positions. We were given a July 1st start date, but we were not able to get those positions filled. So that'll be a return of $20,502. On line item 204.3, we are asking for increased funds for the replacement of, it's listed as 33 vehicles. However, we're going to change that returning money because the GBI is going to only be able to purchase 21 vehicles based on the new methodology of calculating when the vehicles are actually eligible. So instead of 828,000, we'll be asking for 585,000, so a reduction of $243,000. On 204.4, we're asking for increased funds for headquarters in order to strengthen up the security around our perimeter. With the riots that affected Georgia State Patrol, we just did an assessment, and we need security upgrades at headquarters. On 206.2, we're asking for increased funds to replace and improve our laboratory equipment. At least 3 of our mass spectrometry in headquarters, the Eastern and Central labs have reached their useful life. They're beyond their useful life, and we need to do that to improve our operational efficiency.
Mass spec is just fine.
Mass spec, thank you, sir. On 206.3, we are asking, we're needing to reduce funds for the Forensic Pathology Fellowship Program, which was given to us last year. In the interim between that given to us and today, what we did learn is through the Accreditation Council for Graduate Medical Education, the committees that accredit these programs, we were getting a little bit too eager, and we needed to get approved before we could expand the fellowship program. So we're in the process of expanding the fellowship program from 2 to 4. And so because we couldn't spend this money, that's why we'll be returning it. On 207.2, we're asking to increase funds for the replacement of 107 vehicles. This is different than the pool vehicles that we addressed in 204.3. Initially, all vehicles at the Bureau were assigned to the Investigative Division, and we took those under 204.3, and we moved the pool cars to administration. What we're talking about here is just the Investigative Division cars, and we have had 21 replacement vehicles that have reached their, under the methodology. We're asking for a total of 24. 21 of those are replacement vehicles, but we are asking the committee for 3 additional vehicles that we're not currently assigned to us. One of those is for a new bomb vehicle. Is that correct?
Yes.
New bomb vehicle and a hardened vehicle as well.
Is it
Armored vehicle, which we don't have. We also are asking for consideration so that we can replace 50 of our Motorola public safety radios that have reached their end of life. And so there's a difference between the House and the governor's budget of that, a reduction of $632,000 based on the end of life methodology. And finally, under 207.3, we're asking to increase funds so we can change. We were given 2 temporary positions and 2 full-time positions for election investigations. We're asking to change that to 4 full-time positions as elections is coming. That's it.
All right. A few questions for you. In reference to the fellowship, I know there's been many discussions about us not just using the doctor as a main person to help out with medical exams, but also using nurses and other folks to help that process, because it's been such a challenge to get medical examiners. Can you give us a brief update on that?
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, there are a couple of updates on that. I'll be meeting with Melody after this to talk about our fellowship program. On Friday, I was down meeting with Dr. Gene Sumner at Mercer Medical School, and I'm pretty excited about this one too. In that one, what they're doing down at Mercer is actually doing an accelerated program so that top flight students can graduate medical school in 3 years as opposed to 4 years. And here's where we're losing people, because it is hard, and I think the committee is aware of this. There's a need of 1,500 forensic pathologists nationwide. There's only 500 available. So we're competing. And the problem we're having is getting into the recruitment of people that want to go in and spend their career cutting on dead bodies. I mean, it's just a fact. It is not the glory position of people graduating medical school. So what Mercer is doing and what they've discovered is that if you can get them in their first year of medical school before all the other professors poo-poo the idea of going into forensic pathology, you are much more likely to retain them. So they're establishing a program that early on they're going to be having people, almost like in career services in high school, tracking them towards forensic pathology so we don't lose them. Very excited about that. But in regards to bringing in other people to assist in the pathology, we're on board with anything that we can do. as long as our friends in prosecution are as well, because they're the ones that are going to have to qualify them as expert witnesses to testify.
And I believe we're waiting on some reports that will hopefully validate that process moving forward.
Yes, sir.
All right, a couple other quick questions. I know it's been challenging also to get folks who do ballistics, et cetera. Do you believe with this $5,000 pay increase that's going to help to resolve part of that issue?
Any amount of money that we can increase will help out, because one of the primary reasons that we're losing people to the Army laboratory on guns is because of pay. The other reason is just because of the overwhelming amount of work. So they can get trained up with us in 18 to 24 months, and then the Army steals them, pays them more money, and gives them less work. By giving them more money, we've addressed part of that problem, and I believe that we're also getting new positions this legislative cycle so that we can also reduce the workload per person. So thank y'all so much.
Good. Okay, last question. This involves the scientists and the backlog. This is something we've dealt with for many years now, and it's gone up and it's gone down. And I had a great conversation with Director Reynolds not too long ago, but we need to address this one time for good. We need to have this as something that's in the rearview mirror now. So with the additions to this budget and what's going on, I know you won't be able to answer this today, but by the time we're back here for the full budget, we'd like to see a schedule on with the investments and when that list is going to be down to pretty much zero once and for all. So we're going to give that as a takeaway item for you.
Yes, sir.
Great. Questions from the committee members? Questions from Majority Leader Dugan?
First thing, be careful talking about the Army when you're talking to us.
I went to West Point. I'm pretty comfortable criticizing my crowd.
I didn't. I was a Mustang. So
Yes, sir.
We got all kinds of stuff going on here.
Hoorah.
Your armored vehicle, tell me exactly what it is.
Connie?
It is an
Well,
armored
why don't you speak in the microphone, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
So this vehicle would allow us to come to sites and provide protection to our agents who currently, we don't have any armored vehicles, and we often find our agents in positions where they have to pull up directly in front of a scene with no protection. A police pursuit vehicle will not stop bullets. And so the governor's recommendation included this vehicle. The only change we're asking for is that it would be an additional vehicle instead of a replacement. We don't have one to surplus in its place.
So when we roll up on a place to execute a search warrant, we're rolling up in just regular vehicles that have no ability to stop any high-powered rifle or any high-powered weapons. During the Atlanta riots, when I went down to the streets where our troops were, there was no protection. I mean, if we had had to skedaddle out of there, it would have been, Katie bar the door as far as driving, because our vehicles didn't offer any protection.
I'll get with you offline. I'm looking more specifically what type of armored vehicle.
Yes, sir.
So I'll get with you offline.
Yes, sir.
Senator Robertson?
Are the vehicle you're talking about, are these mid-size armored vehicles? Normally they're used as rescue vehicles. They have a high ground clearance with a door on the bottom, and you can pull up over an individual. We've purchased 2 or 3 of these during my career, and I know that my friends with the GBI and at Cjcc have trained on with some of these vehicles. It's not a tank by any stretch.
It's closer to a Humvee.
It's basically for some reason a military vehicle used in the desert came to mind, but that's not. It's a something cat is what I'm thinking of. Bearcat. It's a Bearcat makes them. I know they're manufactured on the East Coast primarily.
That's the concept, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Senator Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your presentation.
Yes, sir.
I'm interested in the vehicle as well, but I think Majority Leader and Senator Robertson have got something for Weekend for Wildlife they want to take down, so they may want to borrow it if this gets approved. A question on the forensic pathologist.
Yes, sir.
The chairman asked several of the questions I wanted to follow up on. What's the total number that we have statewide as far as positions? How many do we actually have? And I think we've got a long-standing problem or challenge of trying to get one of those filled in Macon, where I represent.
I believe we are at 17, but we...
15,
I'm sorry.
1 vacant.
Okay, I'm so sorry. We're allotted 15 with 1 vacancy, which we're actively recruiting right now. And I spent Friday down in Macon meeting with a headhunter, the chief medical examiner of Pinellas County, Florida, who said that he was good at recruiting forensic pathologists. And then also with Dr. Sumner to see what we could do, work out with Mercer. Here's our commitment. making and staying open forever and ever.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you. I appreciate
Yes, sir.
that.
All right, Senator Thompson.
Good morning. I know when we stood up the GBI Crime Lab in Augusta that we struggled to get analysts, and I
Yes,
know
sir.
that we've continued to look at that. Can you address that? How are we as far as being able to fill those positions, and is there a growing need for that? Because I know our cyber crimes lab and our cyber crimes within our state continues to grow.
So our Forensic Science Division does over 100,000, more than 100,000 requests. When I say 100,000 requests, if we have a crime scene can have up to, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, and sometimes 100. So it doesn't represent the number of defendants flowing through, but the number of requests that Forensic Science does. With our backlog that's been developed, it's just because as a human, I have a limit in the number of cases I can do and do it accurately. So we have had there's been a gap between the number we've needed and the number we got. But let me just say something for the committee. It's not just systemic to the GBI. On our outsourcing data, because we've looked at outsourcing, y'all have been very generous with us on outsourcing. Outside laboratories are facing the same issues that we are facing as far as being able to staff their agencies. So we need, with what y'all are doing for us in the positions, it's the first time since I've been at the Bureau that I'm actually optimistic that we're going to be able to not only meet the incoming, but we're also going to be able to chip away at the existing backlog that we've had. So thank y'all for what y'all are doing and about to do.
Thank you.
Did I answer that question?
On our cyber crimes, right? That's a different.
Okay.
When we talked about what we did over previous director and we stood that up and appropriated the money for that, we struggled. I think we had 2 positions or 3 positions, and we've continued to find those individuals and their specific needs to be able to address those with the cybercrime.
And Senator, I'm sorry, I thought you meant forensic science, but on the cybercrime unit, that is one of the most specialized areas of investigations, and we are constantly recruiting for that particular. We have a backlog because in cybercrimes, just like every other police jurisdiction in the state of Georgia, because every single defendant has a cell phone and that needs to be downloaded and dumped. Every single defendant has left a cookie crumb trail on Google Maps that has to be acquiesced and studied and things like that. So to quote scripture, the field is white unto harvest. And as many people as you can give us, we'll take it and we'll start harvesting.
Well, maybe as a follow-up before the full budget, you can also bring back with us where cyber is today as far as case backlog versus need, et cetera, so we can look at that appropriately.
You got that? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. We're going to bring
sir.
up Cjcc next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Neal, Executive Director of Cjcc. I have with me my CFO, Nathan Branscombe, Deputy Director, Stephen Hatfield, and Director of Communications, Danielle Lewis. For the sake of time, I will forego pleasantries. I know that your work is appreciated by me. Having sat in your chairs a few years ago, I'll leave it for that and get right to the business. We appreciate the Governor's Office with the $5,000 pay raise for retention for all full-time benefit-eligible state employees. Cjcc is a little bit unique. We have many full-time benefit-eligible state employees that receive funds other than state appropriations through grants and other areas. For us to be able to give that $5,000 to all of our full-time benefit-eligible employees, we would need $616,000 instead of $80,000. The House has added $201,000 as they were working on the budget, and we wanted to make sure that that you all had that number in mind as you put your stamp on the budget. We also, by the way, page 20, that's 208.1 and 208.3 is the House ad. 208.2 is a critical need that the Governor's Office addressed with their budget recommendation. We expend about $20 million a year in our Crime Victims Emergency Fund. All victims of violent crime are eligible for $25,000 reward or award, with a cap of $15,000 for medical, $6,000 for funeral. The different caps in there, but $25,000 total per award. We draw most of those revenues from probation fees. Since the beginning of the pandemic, from the beginning of the pandemic until June 30th of this year, we will have lost about $19 million in revenues from probation fees based on what we would normally expect. That's coming in at about $6 million a year less in probation fees that we're collecting during the pandemic. It's put our emergency fund in a very precarious situation. The governor's office added $4.6 million to our crime victims fund. The House has redirected $1.8 million in unallocated training funds to give a total of $6.5 million into that fund. Based on the drawdown of federal dollars that we get in our match, this will take the crime victims fund from a projected insolvency crisis from December of 2023. It'll probably get us into the middle of 2025, correct?
Between December 24 and April 25, depending on revenue recovery.
So that's a very much needed add. We may need to come back, depending on how those revenues continue to go. We may need to come back and address this again in the future, clearly, but this gives us some time to see how those revenues will recover going forward.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions, committee? Senator Robertson?
Do you have a comprehensive report to show how those funds are being allocated, and I mean number of crime victims, types of crimes, things of that nature?
We do. We have we've given some.
I've got.
That's not comprehensive on the distributions, but that'll tell you a little bit about the revenues. But we can certainly get that for you.
If you would, I would greatly appreciate that as we move through this process.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
If you go ahead and just email that to me, I'll make sure all our committee members have a copy.
Yep, we can do that.
All right. Other questions from the committee members? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, next, our accountability court judges.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Honorable Committee. My name is Charles Oslander. I'm a state court judge from Athens, Clarke County, and I also serve as the vice chair. And with me is Taylor Jones, our executive director of the council, and I also want to say that our chair, Scott Smith from Bartow County, has a criminal calendar this morning, and he could not be here. Senator Thompson, I don't know if he reached out to you to let you know that. I know that we're being very brief and concise, and Taylor will cover the numbers, but I just wanted to cover the 60-second because I know we're a newer agency that's under a lot of scrutiny, just like every agency, and wanted to tell you that you should be very proud of your Council of Accountability Court Judges and what we do here in Georgia. We supervise over 170 accountability courts, and we're known as a national model for the way that we set up our governance and our supervision. So I want to tell you 5 things that we do very quickly. First, we've established a comprehensive statewide standards for all court types: drug, mental health, veterans, DUI, and family treatment courts. We have a rigorous certification process that none of those courts will get any state dollar until they're certified that they follow every state standard that is set. We do a comprehensive peer review where we go on site with an existing court staff and fully meet with, review all the processes of every accountability court and sit in all their court sessions, review all the materials to make sure that they're meeting all the standards, and also to make sure that we give them advice on best practices. And lastly, we provide training for all of our accountability court professionals, and we provide on-site and technical assistance. So I just wanted to let you know this is a large undertaking that we do, and I want to kind of give part of what our Council of Accountability Court Judges. And Taylor, can you cover our budget items here?
I can.
And I'm here for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge, and good morning to members of the committee. I'm going to do my best to paint a little bit of the picture of Georgia's accountability courts briefly, because I know you have a lot to get through this morning. But we're specifically here to speak to line 209.1 of your tracking sheet, and that indicates an amount of $18,415 for statewide pay increases for eligible employees, and Cjcc would just respectfully ask for the committee's favorable consideration of that request. So to paint the picture, we have provided 2 copies of reports. They should be in your materials. That includes performance data and cost savings information for this past fiscal year 21. But accountability courts throughout the pandemic continued to serve participants. Whether it was virtually, in a hybrid format, or in person, accountability courts worked to ensure that program participants were served, supervised, and held accountable. Accountability courts are quickly rebounding their participant census since the lifting of the statewide judicial emergency order in June of 2021. When the judicial emergency order was first signed in March of 2020, we saw a 60% decrease in the number of referrals coming into our programs. But since that time, we've seen a 73% cumulative increase in the number of new folks starting our accountability courts. As members of the committee are aware, that accountability courts are a sentencing method. As Superior, State, and Juvenile courts work through the backlog of cases, Georgia's accountability courts are positioned to serve more participants this current fiscal year and beyond. Accountability court program participants maintain their sobriety throughout the pandemic. In fiscal year 21, our courts performed 543,357 drug screens. Of these tests, 93.7 were negative. And this is during a time when Georgia saw a 29.4% increase in drug overdose deaths between June 2020 and June 2021. As a reminder for the committee, eligible accountability court participants continue to be those who commit offenses as a result of their substance use disorder or severe and persistent mental illness. Participants that come into our courts are not charged with gang-related activity, sex crimes, or have a serious violent criminal history. Accountability courts continue to be a more cost-effective method to serve these eligible offenders with a substance use disorder or a severe and persistent mental illness. As an example of this, and there's some data within your reports, that for every state dollar that's invested into one of our programs, there's a direct savings of $4.46 saved. So I know that was brief and concise. I'm here to answer questions or provide more data, and I know Judge Oslander is here to do that as well. But thank you for your continued support.
Well, thank you, and I say this every time, I'll say it again to all my fellow legislators or anybody in the room. If you've not gone to an accountability court graduation, please do so, and I challenge you to walk out of there without a tear in your eye. So thank you. Questions from Senator Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not a question, just a comment. I want to thank both of you. Taylor, Judge, thank y'all for the work you've done. I practice law in my daytime job, and this is an absolute hit within the court system, if you will, in a great way. And one of the things I think that most folks, and you, Taylor, you touched on it, that it really benefits the rest of the judicial system is the load that is taken off of the judges. Now, obviously, the judges still have to manage the accountability courts, but they're done in an efficient way and a way that we can all be proud of. That's going to help offset the real challenges we've got on the criminal dockets and ultimately the civil documents as you guys try to manage that going forward and taking care of the pandemic backlog. And so thank y'all for what y'all done and continue to do. It's just, it's a bright spot, one of the many, but an absolute bright spot in the judicial system and the way y'all managed it. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions? Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, DOD. General, good morning.
Good morning, Senator Albers, members of the Senate Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Major General Tom Carden. I'm the senior servant in your National Guard. I'm accompanied today by Joe Ferrero, our Deputy Adjutant General, Mr. Kenley Finlayson, our State Finance Director. As you all know, the 15,000 men and women in your Georgia National Guard have been pretty busy over the last couple of years and doing great work for the state nation. It's an honor to represent them before you today. In terms of our adjusted budget for adjusted state fiscal year 2022, we've only have two recommendations, both of which have already been included in the governor's budget. And in addition, there's an adjustment that was added by the House in military readiness to cover the state employee pay raises for those who are eligible. On page 12 at 115.2 military readiness, you'll find a line item for $63,873 for operational costs associated with the bowling building over in Milledgeville. It was a former Youth Challenge Academy. We had to close that during the pandemic when we did the 11% across the board budget cuts. We want to maintain that facility because it'll give us an opportunity to compete for additional force structure and stationing capability that'll help your Georgia Department of Defense. On page 12 at 115.3 under military readiness, you'll find $3,845,000 for more demolition work at the former Lorenzo Benz Youth Detention Facility. This will give us additional expansion opportunity and allow us to compete for additional force structure and capability. On page 12 at 115.4, under military readiness, you'll find that the governor's initial recommendation for military readiness under that line item was $9,460,283. The House added $1,398,157 to the governor's recommendation, bringing that total to $10,858,440 to fund the pay differences for state employees, since the federal differential matching funds could not be programmed in the middle of a fiscal year under a continuing resolution. So we appreciate your support. Stand ready to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, General. So again, 115.4 just bridges the gap for those folks, so they'll be consistent with everyone else. Is that
Yes,
correct?
sir.
Okay.
Yes, Senator.
Questions from the committee members? Senator Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not a question, but just a comment. The above and beyond. I just want to personally thank you for the different opportunities we had, not only this year to be able to help some of the individuals navigate the system and do some other things. You've gone above and beyond when we called on you to be able to do some things, and personally want to thank you for that.
Yes, sir. It's an honor. I'll pass that on to the men and women that make it happen for us.
Other questions? General, thank you so much, and again, please pass on our thanks from everyone here.
Will do. It's an honor. Thank you all very much.
All right. G-Man, Homeland Security.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning.
Good to see you this morning. I've got with me today my Deputy Director of Administration and Finance, Mark Sexton, and then Mike Nix with Cjcc in case there's any questions as related to the revenue stream. It's good to be here this morning. Good to see everybody. I want to call your attention to page 14.
Chris, do a quick introduction for those online.
My apologies, sir. Chris Stallings, Director of GEMA Homeland Security. Our budget is pretty simple. We don't draw a lot of state funds. Most of our stuff is typically funded through the federal government, a lot of the programs we have, but we do have a few things we want to address this morning. First, as you saw, line item 169.1, the increase of the $5,000, which we're extremely appreciative by the governor and his team for putting that in there. The 144,885, that's in there. Due to the uniqueness of our budget, it doesn't quite cover the gap that we have to match without making some real changes that would be long-term, and I think offline we could discuss some of those because it dips into the Homeland Security side of things. One of the issues with our uniqueness of our federal funding is it's very siloed, so dollars that come in this silo cannot be spent at all in this silo. There might be a surplus in this silo, but this silo is bare bones, and so we're keeping it there. On the second line item, 169.2, we had some retirements this year, so we had to request some payouts. And then 169.3, the House did add $414,485. Our initial budget impact would have been to the tune of $653,010.23, leaving us a shortfall of around $238,125. That would include the $5,000 raise across the board. And we're very appreciative of everything you've got. That's the extent of our budget. Again, the majority of our stuff is federally funded.
Thank you. So 169.3 is very similar to what General Cardin had to make up that gap in between.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay.
And then the remainder would be roughly $238,000 should your committee see the need to put that
Wonderful.
in there.
And we're hoping we'll get perhaps some good news on some funding coming in for some radios and E911. I want to take a moment to thank Michael Nix. His extraordinary work at helping us out is not gone unnoticed. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. He's a one-man wrecking crew, and we appreciate his efforts over there. He's always leaning forward, and that is extremely, extremely appreciative.
Absolutely. Okay, questions from the committee members? Seeing none. Chris, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, next up, DJJ.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman,
Tyrone Oliver, Commissioner, Department of Juvenile Justice. Here with me, I have our CFO, Stephen Carter Williams, Deputy Commissioner, Shawanda Reynolds Cobb, and our Deputy CFO, excuse me, he got promoted here recently, Christopher Lampley. Just really quickly, I'll draw your attention to page 23, and tracking number 211.1. It's the funding increase for the $5,000 pay increase that you already know of. And so later on, we get down to tracking number 213-1 in our secure commitment, our YDCs. The House had added an additional $457,000 to cover that increase for, we partnered with Augusta University for our health care benefits, and so that'll just make sure that we cover that cost for them. Sorry, I'm jumping around here. Let me go back up to page 23. 211.2 is the transfer of funds to provide a 20% salary increase for our JPMs. Our JPMs are our juvenile program managers. That's to create there was a pay parity there between our certified staff and the people who run the actual office, and so we're just going to transfer those funds from secure detention to there, and the House did support that. Same thing for 211.3 in community service on page 23 to increase funds to reflect the loss of Title IV funding. The House did support that. And then 211.4, same thing to increase funds for RBWO, watchful oversight, to reflect the loss of Title IV funding. Next, I'll go to page 24, 212.2, Department of Administration. It's the lapse factor that we budgeted in. Is to go ahead and transfer those funds from the secure detention to go ahead and increase those funding as well. Next, I draw your attention to page 25, 213.3, secure commitment. It's the increased funds for capital repairs and maintenance. The House did put in an additional funding to a tune of $3.2 million to help with our aging infrastructure. And then also, same thing for our YDCs at 214.5 was an increase of $6.7 million to take care of our increase our capital maintenance and repairs for our aging infrastructure. And that was the only big changes that we had to our amended FY 2022 budget.
Thank you. A couple quick questions.
Yes, sir.
I know we've talked about this in the past, but what is your current turnover rate for both agency-wide as well as specific for your folks in the corrections offices?
Agency-wide, our turnover rate currently right now is 40%. It's a decrease from last fiscal year. It was 45%. Our JCO turnover rate is currently is 90%. It's 7% decrease from last fiscal year, which was 97. So making a step in the right direction.
We appreciate that. I know that's still a daunting number for turnover. When you have folks who are leaving, and I know you work in probably the most difficult environment, we appreciate your leadership and your team more than we probably say. Is there, I'm sure you're doing exit interviews, is dollars the number one reason they're leaving, or is there a myriad of reasons why they're departing?
Yes, dollars are the number one, pay is the number one, but let me just clarify something. That 90% turnover rate is just our entry level JCO 1s and 2s. It's not including the whole entire JCO series. And so just your entry level coming in the door, that's that 90% turnover rate. Overall turnover rate for the JCO series is about 73%, but still high. But to answer your question, Mr. Chairman, yes, it's the number one reason is pay, and then also, some of the environment. A lot of the JCO staff feel that, that the kids are not being held accountable to a certain extent. There's certain things that we can do that our brother agency does at DOC as far as holding youth accountable there. So we have to get creative on that. But the number one reason from what they're saying in exit interviews and then also our surveys is pay.
And I want to let the committee know that we're doing research on that as well for all the other states around us to make sure that we're in parity with that, and even with this, I think we're making a good leap forward, but we're not quite there yet. Last question is for capital repairs. Obviously, we have a great revenue, thanks to Governor Kemp opening our state up and leading us strongly. Do we have a list that kind of takes us out 5 or 10 years for capital repairs?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I'd love for you to share that with me, and I'll share it with the committee offline.
Absolutely.
Other questions from committee members? Senator Robertson.
On your JCO, which is juvenile correctional officer, correct?
Correct.
Okay. For that turnover rate, is there an average time that these individuals are coming in and then all of a sudden having an epiphany that they've entered the wrong career?
Yeah, usually within 30 days. We lose them before. Some of them, most of them, we lose before they even go to the academy.
Have you calculated the investment that you've put into those individuals?
Yes.
That basically at 30 days you lose?
Yeah, so onboarding costs it. Well, before, if they go through training, which some of them we do lose after training, but it costs the agency about $5,300 per cadet to train. So it's a lot of money that we spend out in training costs. Onboarding before they go to the academy, you're looking at somewhere around like $1,000 to onboard, somewhere close to that. By the time they onboard and then start working a couple of weeks before they quit.
And I know Chairman Albers has talked about research, but you're saying that 90% of the people coming in that are turning around and going out after 30 days. Have we started maybe considering that we're fishing in the wrong pond for employees?
Well, the pond is kind of large, but our pond is a little small as well. Just because of, I think the $5,000 is definitely going to help. That increase is going to help. As this body did support the 10% self-funding increase. I think that was a driving force to where, we had our decrease by 7%. And of course, the culture and the climate, the workplace climate is also a huge factor in that. But the pond, we're competing with the same pond DOC, Georgia State Patrols, sheriffs, private security. So we're all fishing in the same pond. We just got to make sure that we're telling our story and making sure that we're the attractive agency that people want to come work for.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I'm not sure that the skill set required for a deputy sheriff, the skill set required for some of those other things you talked about is really the right skill set for dealing with the juvenile offender. As
Yes.
You've said yourself, the juvenile offenders are very a unique population. And any idea what the average age of these that are turning around and walking back out? Because what I've seen, I went into a Chick-fil-A one time and I was the youngest person there, and I'm not a young man, but it was probably the most efficient restaurant I'd ever been into because they were apparently targeting a higher age demographic, a more mature person. And I'm wondering maybe if we don't need to move the needle a little bit and start looking at more seasoned individuals who have worked at different professions throughout their career and put them in those environments to deal with this at-risk population. But as Chairman Albers has said in the past, as we've had these conversations, anything in the world we can do to stop crime early in the state of Georgia, which is these kids and children that you're getting who have not been cared for up to this point, then, I, myself, and anybody in this room, I'm sure is more than willing to help. And I appreciate the sacrifice you and your agency make each and every day.
Thank you.
And I've seen an incredible culture change thanks to your leadership, so we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Department of Public Safety. Colonel, come on down.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
I'm Chris Wright, Commissioner at the Department of Public Safety. I have with me this morning our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Lori Smith, and our Chief of Staff, Major Josh Lamb. Thank you all for the opportunity to be with you this morning. Mr. Chairman, please refer to Senate tracking sheet for our amended fiscal year 22 budget. The Department of Public Safety can be found on page 28, section 39. The Department of Public Safety supports the Governor's and House recommendations for amended fiscal year 22, which includes funds for a $5,000 pay increase across all programs totaling $6.8 million. We believe this pay increase will be impactful for each of our employees and will be a major step in helping our agency recruit and retain our workforce. Mr. Chairman, thank you, Governor Kemp, and all of our legislators for supporting the fiscal year 22 bond package for our new headquarters project. The groundbreaking ceremony was held in August and construction is well underway. We support line 254.2, the Governor's amended fiscal year 22 recommendation, and House's support of $6.6 million for FF&E for the new headquarters project. The anticipated completion date of that is January 17th, 2023, so just around the corner. We support the following governor's amended fiscal year budget recommendation, along with the House supporting those recommendations, as reflected on line 254.3, $655,000 for the maintenance and construction of 3 stationary communication towers. As reflected on line 254.4, the $4.8 million was originally part of our fiscal year 23 bond request. The additional funds are needed to complete the construction of the new headquarters project. The request is due to the price escalation of materials that we have experienced with construction. Moving to our field offices and services, we support the following governor's amended fiscal year budget recommendation, along with the House supporting those recommendations. As reflected on line 255.2, $12 million in one-time funds to purchase 314 vehicles. These funds will allow our agency to replace existing vehicles within our fleet. And I know you will probably inquire about this. We have a letter of intent to purchase those vehicles with Dodge. We have a very close relationship with Dodge, obviously, because we purchased quite a few vehicles from them. The House recommended reducing our amended fiscal year 22 budget by $1.7 million to reflect the reduction of our trooper school class size on line 255.3. However, the House supported funding to provide a 10% salary supplement for our sworn members working in the Troop C Metro Atlanta area. We appreciate the House and the governor's leadership and support of this supplement pay. The supplement will go to the troopers and officers we consider boots on the ground that are carrying out this critical mission of the department here in the Atlanta metro area. The 10% supplement will help recruit and retain troopers and officers to work in the metro area. We've seen the workload increase, crime increase, and the competitive pay in the metro area have made it very difficult to recruit in the Atlanta metro area. As reflected on line 255.4, the $2.1 million was also originally part of our fiscal year 23 bond package. These additional funds are needed to complete the construction of the following projects. The request is due to, again, price escalation of materials we've experienced with construction. $500,000 in additional funds needed to complete the construction of the post in Milledgeville, $500,000 to complete the construction of the post in Reedsville, and $350,000 to renovate the post in Madison. $750,000 will be needed for the maintenance of our 89 facilities across the state. And finally, as reflected on line 256.2, you will see the language for the 10% salary supplement for Region C. This is for the sworn members of the Motor Carrier Compliant Division that work in the Metro Atlanta area as well. And that concludes our presentation. Mr. Chairman, we'll take any questions.
Thank you, Colonel. Excited about that 10% addition. What will that, and that's a permanent addition, by the way, right? That 10%?
Yes, sir.
Increase?
That's the
Okay.
hope. Yes, sir.
So between the $5,000 pay increase for all state employees, what is the starting salary now for someone who gets through trooper school, as well as in the average salary if they're living in the area with the 10% bump?
So when someone graduates from trooper school now, their salary is $47,350. With the $5,000, that will bump it up to just a little over $52,000.
And then obviously 10% more for those folks who are
assigned here just to the metro area. That does not include officers who do not work. We're only targeting that just for those that are assigned to this Troop C metropolitan area. We see a lot of other states are doing that in their metropolitan areas to give an incentive to attract officers to work in those high crime, high intensity areas, and also there's a lot of there's an increase in the cost of living in those particular areas as well.
And for the committee, similar to the other ones that I mentioned, we're doing some salary studies on all positions, whether it be JCOs, correction officers, you name it, but similar to here for our State Patrol and GBI as well. I do have ongoing concerns about the increases that others are paying in the competitive market right now, and making sure we have our best and brightest. Worst thing I'd like to see happen is to have someone who we've trained in your department to then leave to be an entry level person in a local city or county department and making $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 more a year. So I think we have to continue to analyze that process and be very thoughtful in the way we invest in those who are serving us and protecting us. One more quick question. Very excited about the grand opening. I hope that we'll have every member of the General Assembly there the day that that ribbon is cut and put in there. With all the additional funds here, do you feel, Colonel, that we have everything we need now in order to be able to open that facility?
Yes, sir, I think so.
Wonderful. Okay. Questions, committee members? Senator Robertson.
Thank you, Colonel. I appreciate you coming by. Starting trooper, you're saying with the 5,000 additional is 52,000?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Could you tell me how that compares to a motor carrier compliance officer with the same level of experience or coming in the door?
Yes, sir. So an MCO1, which is the ground level for the motor carrier side, when they come in at no prior law enforcement experience and after the completion of their school, their salary is $42,840. You can add 5,000 to that, and it will take it to 47. An MCO1 with at least 2 years of prior law enforcement experience, and after 12 months of service, their current salary is $45,900, and you can add the additional 5,000 to that salary, and it'll be around just a little over 50.
Thank you. And Colonel, do the officers here on campus, Capitol Police, do they fall under your purview?
Yes, sir, they do.
Okay, and what is the pay for a Capitol officer coming in the door?
So a Capitol Police Officer 1 after completion of school is $43,215 is their current salary.
Is the 5,000 available to them also?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the 43 is not including the plus 5?
No, sir, that's the current salary.
Okay. Do you feel that we're short in any of those areas as far as the duties, requirement, training, and skills between the trooper, the motor carrier officer, and the Capitol officer? Do you feel that those are tracking along with if we went outside into the into local agencies, municipal governments, as the chairman was speaking, that we'd be competitive with those individuals' salaries?
The salaries you're speaking of?
Yes, or salaries and benefits. I want to be clear. I don't think I know a lot of people say salary matters, and it does, but a lot of times the benefits outweigh the salaries when we start talking about the type of work that public safety and other government jobs entail.
Well, I think I'll say, as you've already heard, it's a very, very competitive market right now. I think the $5,000 is a major step in helping us. The problem right now is that what we're seeing across the nation, not just here in our state, is everyone is having to raise their salaries. The locals are doing it. They have the ability to do it almost every single month when they have city commission meetings, county commission meetings. Our opportunity comes once a year, so we're seeing the locals take those opportunities, and it's almost a bidding war that is taking place right now because everybody is trying to pull from that same pool of people, if you will. Not everyone is interested in the law enforcement profession right now. I think the challenge that we have moving forward is trying to find ways to recruit younger people to come into this profession. That's our biggest challenge, and so I don't know that I answered your question totally, but I mean it's going to take time and to turn this around. I think we are turning it around, but I think the challenge is getting people interested in this profession again.
Well, I just want to make sure that we as legislators, we see that blue uniform and we understand the pride and integrity that comes along with it. And as I traveled around the state throughout my career fighting for pay and benefits for law enforcement officers, I never could lose sight of the fact that while I'm out speaking up for deputy sheriffs, that there are employees within the sheriff's office who work inside the county jails as correctional officers or whatever, that sometimes they're not looked at with the same level of understanding and respect as that badge out there in that press uniform. And so I want to make sure that everybody understands that your focus, while we understand the job of the trooper, that the job of the motor carrier officer is extremely important and beneficial for our state to have the best professionals out there on our interstates managing their target audience, and the same thing for those assigned here to the Capitol to keep this campus secure 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that we're also looking at those individuals and making sure that they're squared away and taken care of with the same amount of energy that we look at when we look at the bright, shiny, sexy stuff.
Yes,
But I appreciate your professionalism. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I know we're out of time. Just a quick question. Is GBA managing y'all's project for your new headquarters?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You mentioned something about cost overruns. I'll get with them, because if you did see them at risk, that should be minimal. So I'll stick with them.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Any other questions? We will follow up afterwards specifically on the reduction of the class size for the 2 trooper schools. I want to make sure that that wasn't cut down a little too quickly, because I know with the increased pay, I'm hoping we'll get more folks through that. So let's follow up that, Colonel.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. We're going to keep moving on. Firefighter standard training.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning. My name is Tony Pritchett. I'm the council chair for Firefighter Standards and Training, and also serving as the interim executive director. So we only have 4 items to speak on this morning. Number one, of course, is 258.1, which is the increase of funds for the 5,000 pay increase for 55-245. 258.2 is increased funds to reflect fiscal year 2021 fireworks excise tax collections, which has went to 832,124. 258.3 is increase of funds to replace 2 vehicles for which the total cost of ownership exceeds book value. These are the vehicles that go to our field representatives who go out and meet with the fire departments and the volunteers and help administer tests and training and the different programs that we support across the state. 258.4 is an increase of funds for an online database to maintain records. We'd received funding for this last year for online testing to allow the opportunity for volunteer and career firefighters across the state to be able to do testing remotely and online from their site without having to travel across the state, which was very big, especially for the volunteer firefighters. The reason we're seeing an increase need on this item is because the database we'd used previously for our website and the maintenance of all of our records for all the fire service is no longer supported by the company we had. So we're able to combine that with the services of our online testing company as well, and that will be the additional cost for adding those services to maintain all of those records in that testing. And those are all the items that we have.
Thank you. I appreciate the work with Arcadis. We needed that. We were woefully behind, and I appreciate you dragging us kicking and screaming into the 21st century. So thank you. Questions from the committee members? Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Post.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. With me today is Chris Harvey. He's the new Deputy Executive Director for Post. I wanted to make sure that we introduced him. Many of you knew him from Secretary of State's office. With that being said, again, good morning. Before I get started, I wanted to take just a brief moment and thank you and the committee for all the work you did last year in helping us with positions that we were given. We've been able to fill all those positions, and as a result of that, we've undertaken a lot of projects, been able to go through a lot of our academy issues, and we simply just would not be where we are today without the help and generosity that y'all showed us last year. So thank you very much. The only thing that we have in our FY 2022 amended budget is the $5,000 pay increase for sworn law enforcement, and that's found on page 59 under section 39.8. Our current operating budget is $4,471,406. That $5,000 across the board pay increase would advance that number to $4,643,278. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have for the amended budget. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those at this time, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate the big moves forward that you have been working on. It has not gone unnoticed. I got a question for Senator Robertson.
Sure.
Director, good to have you here today. Could you talk to me a little bit about, just very briefly, statewide vacancies within post throughout the state, if we're experiencing anything there, and also what you're doing to recruit to fill those positions?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Beginning in March of last year, when the COVID shutdowns all started, moving into current times, in the public safety realm, we've lost somewhere around 10 to 10,500 employees, keeping in mind that we currently have 59,000, roughly 59,000 employees. With that, we've been able to train and replace during that time frame somewhere around 7,600 individuals. So we've lost 10,000 veteran officers, correctional officers, parole officers, and we've replaced those with 7,200 brand new individuals. So we're behind the 8 ball in that regard. Getting to the second half of your question, what are we doing to try to fill those vacancies? Looking at primarily a 3-pronged approach. In the past, we've had very low interest in people coming from outside of the state of Georgia into Georgia to seek jobs in law enforcement, primarily because our equivalency of training process was rather cumbersome. As a result of that, many people, if they did decide to move to Georgia, just simply got hired by a police department and went back through the police academy again. What we've been able to do is go through now and revamp that, and beginning in January, there's no longer that intensive testing, the additional training, keeping in mind that we rank 49th in the nation in terms of the length of our mandate program. So through a simple background check with their state agencies and their state post program, we're able to bring those officers on now, offer them a short course in Georgia criminal law, Georgia traffic law, qualify with their firearms, update them through their required governor's training and use of force, de-escalation, community-oriented policing, and we're able to put them on the street sometimes within just a matter of a few short days. We hope that that's going to help fill some of these numbers. Since we began that program, we have had massive response. Sheriff's Department's calling me, begging for this class, telling me that they've got 8, 10, sometimes as many as 20 people lined up to come in from out of state. So I think that that's going to be have a very positive impact on those numbers as well. Another thing that we're looking at doing is talking with other states, utilizing some of the military resources that we have within our state. We're going out to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. That is where the Army and the Marine Corps does their military police training. Looking at the requirements that they have for their training, in many instances, it is very, very similar to what we require in our post-mandate program. I intend to work with the council on getting approval to be able to bring some of those individuals on directly certified as law enforcement officers through basically the same process we would someone from out of state.
Thank you. And just really quick, I'm on the Buckhead Safety Committee for the City of Atlanta, and sitting there as a component of that by Councilwoman Mary Norwood to put together. And in the conversation the other night, APD was talking about recruiting, and I want to be clear. I asked the question the other night also. We are not removing any disqualifiers related to marijuana use from any of our post standards and requirements, are we?
Absolutely not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great day. We're going to bring up Chipstick.
Thank you.
That will be our last today. Pardons and Paroles won't be joining us. They just had the $5,000 pay increase, so I let them off the hook today.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, I'm Chris Wigington, the director of the Georgia Public Safety Training Center. With me is Miss Cindy Jones, our comptroller. If you will turn to page 36 in your tracking sheet, item 260.1 is the $5,000 increase for our full-time eligible employees in the amount of $931,946. That would bring our entry-level instructor-level position up to 58,000. Currently, it's about 53, a little over 53,000. When you're talking about fishing in the same pond, we're a little bit different agency because we're trying to fish in a smaller pond. So what I mean by that is we're trying to recruit sergeants, lieutenants, captains from other agencies that's got 10 or 15 years of experience. Although for the state of Georgia, that employee is a new employee, we can't hire a new recruit to fill that position. And for years, that's the problem we were facing, is we were hiring somebody with 2 or 3 years of experience, and they were teaching in the academy. And you can imagine what type of results we get. So with this pay adjustment, it will definitely help with the recruiting and retention with us. Next item is 260.2. That is a replacement of 8 vehicles. There's a list, we sent you an itemized list of the 8 vehicles. 7 are over 11 years old, 1 is 10 years old, all exceeding 100,000 miles. Next item is 260.3. That is a replacement of a backhoe. We are a 1,000-acre campus, city within a city is what I tell a lot of people, and we do a lot of maintenance ourselves, water lines, sewer lines, things like that. The one we have currently is over 14 years old, and the engine is currently blowed up, and we can't repair it. So we really need that backhoe. Next item is 260.4. The House decided to move the maintenance and repairs money from the 23 budget to the amended 22. This is primarily to repave the entire campus. So the asphalt we have around the perimeter roads, the parking lots, those items, that stuff's been there over 30 years. So that's the largest cost of that. And then the second part of that is for HVAC renovation in our main campus and outlying buildings. With that, I would open any questions in your favorable consideration.
Questions for Chris? Chris, thank you. I know we typically, Chairman Harper started this years ago, come down and spend a day down there with our Public Safety Committee as well as this committee. Unfortunately, COVID the last couple of years has interrupted that, but we're optimistic we can do that sometime this year, and we look forward to seeing a newly paved parking lot.
Yes, sir. Looking forward as well.
Thank you.
Director, do you have a Bearcat, which is what I'm going to know you as from this point moving forward? But because I think the first time you and I met, we were out in the woods somewhere near Fort Benning, and you were doing some training out there. Do y'all have a Bearcat on campus?
We do not have a Bearcat. We have a old military MRAP on campus that we got off surplus property that we currently use.
Would a piece of equipment, because of what we're dealing with today with terrorism and with the violence that we've seen, the uptick or something like that, would it be reasonable to look at the training y'all do on campus out there and in the future maybe start addressing something where we can get a little more training like that out there so we can have uniformity in the use of that type of equipment throughout the state to make sure that there's clear understanding that we are not using tanks and rocket launchers and mortars and other things that when we go out and engage civilian populations during high risk and very deadly situations. Like I know, and I think it was Arizona this past weekend, I know 5 officers were shot and 4 were additionally injured on one particular incident of a barricaded suspect out there where an infant was involved. So is that reasonable to think that we need to start looking and maybe broaden out some of that more so that we're doing this with a scalpel and not with a chainsaw?
Yes, sir. I agree. Those are primarily addressed as rescue vehicles.
Correct.
To use, although they are armored, they're primarily used as rescue vehicles in those type situations you're speaking of. We have applied for several in grants, and none of those have ever been awarded. So we would be more than willing to use those and implement it in training.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Director.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, before we wrap up, let me begin by, or end by thanking all of the folks who serve us in this state, the men and women who are going out each and every day to protect and serve us are the heroes of our community and statewide. I want to thank Governor Kemp because of his leadership of opening up our state. We are in a blessed position for a budget in order to make sure we're making the right investments while also giving dollars back to our taxpayers. I want to thank Miss Melody Debussy next to me, who does all of the real work here, leads our Senate Budget Office, but also because they are down staff, she is helping us specifically this year. So we pulled in the big guns, so thank you. I'm going to ask the committee members to please, if you have anything specific on this budget, to come grab me or email me right away, because the amended budget is going to be moving quickly, as well as any concerns or ideas you have for the major budget moving forward. We'll be getting all that back to Chairman Blake Tillery, so we can have a good Wednesday meeting for all the subcommittee chairmen. Is there anyone else that wants to speak for the committee today? Seeing none, this meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you.